Indeed, thank you so much. That is how you can keep fit even as you plan to be able to devour whatever you wish, your quote-unquote poison, as we extend and progress into the festive season. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is Morning Cafe. My name is George Marenga, and we are about to have an important conversation on matters debt. Now, this festive season will present a very interesting situation for everyone. There will be expenses that will come in. There will be a time of making merry and having fun, and it depends on how you want to go about it. But also in the same breath, access to financing, especially for this in the wake of the current economic crisis, can be quite interesting, and you'd want to manage how you spend and how you borrow, considering after every festive season comes a crunch time of back to school. And to further have that conversation with us is Grace Njogu. She is from Ngao Credit. Good morning, Grace, and welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Indeed. Now let's look at this whole conversation. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you so much for joining us. What is the space of digital lending, first of all? Because many people will, banks take, traditional lenders take quite a minute. But what is the space of digital lenders like yourself in the wake of providing assistance to be able to ensure that things run smoothly, most especially for Kenyan families?
Okay, so I think the role of digital lending and digital institutions is to complement the otherwise traditional forms of financial access, being banks, SACCOs, etc. So they are not supposed to be consumed exclusively. They should be consumed with other products. Ideally, the digital products should be consumed for matters emergency. In the event that you have exhausted your limit, you cannot be able to access, for example, money from your current financial partner, be they a bank or a SACCO, then the digital institution come in handy to make sure that you are at no point left strained because you cannot be able to access digital financing.
Yes.
Additionally, it's also widening the inclusion into financial services. Currently, the people who are unbanked form majority of Kenya. In the past, you would have thought that because in the advent of banks that like Equity, there'd be more banked individuals in Kenya. But now there's a reality that they are not as inclusive because they will require you to have a minimum deposit. In the event that you don't have a minimum deposit, then you need to have a source of income for them to continue maintaining that account. And now we have telcos, e.g. Safaricom, that are offering alternative financing and also are also playing in the digital lending space. So they are widening the inclusion financially for the masses in Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as the festive season draws near, many people are excited about the holidays, but are quite unsure of what lies ahead in terms of spending, in terms of having a good time, no matter how that is interpreted across the demographics. Why is it important about managing finances, and why do you think the issue of debt becomes such a critical issue and a thorny issue for many during the festive season, to be specific?
First and foremost, the problem with Kenya and problem with most developing countries, and we can even say third world countries, is that debt is being consumed to run the day-to-day of most households in Kenya and in Africa. Ideally, debt should be a gap, either a bridging facility, should be an emergency facility. And there is nothing that is an emergency about Christmas. We have known that there will be Christmas every year. We know the 25th of December is Christmas Day. So I don't want to excuse poor planning to allow people to consume digital facilities, being that I play in this space. But I would like to say that debt should not be consumerist. It should not be for day-to-day running. Debt should be to be able to bridge, to be able to acquire assets, to be able to take advantage of opportunities you'd otherwise not be able to access. So if we are spending, if the intention is to borrow so that we can make chicken and some stew and some chapati over this Christmas holidays, then we have missed the point. And I think that goes as far as to our government. We cannot run budgets, e.g. payrolls, using debt. It is not sustainable. I think you must have heard the CEO of the country, the president, talking about how not to continue running Kenya through debt, because in the long run, it's not sustainable. So we are looking at being sustainable as a country. And I think now we need to think about our own spaces in our own households. You cannot borrow Peter to pay Paul. So if you are not earning this income, however you're going to earn it, then you cannot spend it, especially for the day-to-day running of your household.
The festive season is also often associated with travel, gifts, and all manner of things, however you want to call it, extending time limits in several areas of entertainment. What are the key reasons that people tend to overspend during the festive season? Why is it, whereas you've said, I mean, we've known Christmas is coming, we've known New Year is coming, it's been a tradition for so long, but why do people tend to overspend?
I think first and foremost is people are trying to live a lie. I don't know how to say this politely. You have told people up country that you are this big manager in the city. Now you must go home appearing to be a manager, so first you've hired a car, you have to fuel that car. When you arrive in town and you are the one who is now the new car owner in your village, you also want to impress the villagers with gifts. Wanakwambia utoe hapa, utoe pale, ununue nyama, ununue mbuzi, and you are falling prey. You are refusing to live. You're refusing to live realistically within your means. So that's the real.
That's the situation that happens.
Yes, yes.
And what else causes this overspending?
Additionally, what else could cause overspending is, of course, unplanned activities. For example, you had planned to take your team to your family to maybe Naivasha, and then whilst you are there, you have decided to overindulge. You have gone beyond your budget as you're trying to make sure that your wife and children think you're the best dad in the country. So you're overindulging. You are going outside your budget. But primarily, there are two things. One, you are trying to impress people. Three, and here there are two categories. You're either going up country to impress your villagers, your family. You're actually managing your family through debt. You're actually taking them on expensive holiday trips, which you had no plan. You are not planned for, or sometimes you are spending more than your savings so that you can be able to impress your families. Ideally, it's trying to meet expectations that you had not foreseen. Yeah.
As a digital lender, do you see a spike, or an increase or an interesting interest in digital lenders like yourself, like Ngao Credit, especially in this festive season?
Coincidentally, there's a very big shift, especially in our country, because in the past, we have been, I think even last 3 to 4 years, maybe it could be a consequence of the very difficult times we are living in financially, but there is a crunch in terms of the borrowing around the festive season. Remember that shortly after the festive season, people go into school opening, and so we would expect as lenders that we will have a high uptick of these loans during this festive season. But Kenyans are changing, something is changing. In fact, if we think about budgets, people are planning, they plan January in December. And so if somebody is going to get a bonus, they're not likely to borrow from you because they are trying to live within their bonus and their salary to be able to make sure that they can pay either school fees for the children come January or entertain the family. Additionally, we also see there's also a culture of, we'll call them the middle class, that don't want to travel up country. They want to go on holiday maybe in Mombasa and Naivasha. And some of them have actually saved up. I think there's Lipa Pole Pole being afforded by these tour companies in Kenya. So there's a small shift towards not borrowing over the holiday season, which of course most digital lenders by now could have observed. It's a common trend across a lot of the players within my space. I don't know about banks, but this is where we are getting the bonus, the 13th check. So the appetite for digital loans is not as high. However, I note with concern that most of the reason why people are also not able to borrow is because these services are not available at the palm of your hand. So majority of players like Ngao, you'll see they have developed an app. You'll see your bank is encouraging you to use either a loop or another app, so that you're able to access on the go. But typically, there's a slowdown in uptake of financial services, especially around the holidays and this holiday in particular. So the demand is not as high as maybe 5 years back. That space is shrinking.
So in that same breath, when are we seeing the uptick in interest in digital and digital loans, digital borrowing?
I think around October, November, December, Actually, September, October, November. December, exclude December.
Okay.
And the people who would typically borrow are people who are trying to buy things that can be sold around this festive season. So a lot of the demand is around people who are in business, trying to make sure that they have enough stock to sell over this festive season. So there's a lot of moving away from the you and me who is borrowing for this Christmas holidays, maybe because you've decided you'll not travel up country, or you're going to consume your bonus if you have some. And if you're not going to consume your bonus, things have been generally tough for the last 5 years. So you're not even thinking about going to impress anyone. You are barely making ends meet, leave alone now trying to take up a loan that you're going to pay as you are anticipating to get some money, because the surety of you getting that money is not there anymore. Yeah.
Talk to us about the very critical issue of the interest rates by digital borrowers, rather digital lenders. And this has been a thorn in the flesh. There have even been situations in the past where, you know, the methods of recovering these monies are very unconventional. Digital lenders have been accused of using very unconventional means, getting to the contacts list of that. Talk to us about how you arrive at the recovery measures for these digital lenders, whereas you're providing the same solution compared to traditional lenders like banks.
So now, and maybe I'll talk about this post-2021 where the Digital Act was enacted. It is illegal for any service provider who has lent you money to contact people on your contact list who you did not put as referees for avoidance of doubt. If you have borrowed from any institution, you have not given them this person as your referee, you have not given them the permission to go into your contact list and call everyone on that list. You can actually place a suit, because this is a breach of data privacy, and there are laws and there's a governing body in place to make sure that digital lenders like myself, like GOtv, we are not infringing on people's rights. So that's number one. That's a caveat. There was this debt collection method was there before the enactment. There are still rogue players in the space who are proceeding to use the old school ways. And the only remedy for the population is to report these people to the regulator. And here we're talking about the data
protection.
The Data Protection Authority. There is the Consumer Protection Authority as well. So there is the competitors, the Competition Authority of Kenya. The regulator, these regulators are supposed to make sure that there is fair play, that the customer actually pays interest for a good or a service. And once they've paid the interest for this loan product or the loan product or the loan service, they are not overcharged. They are within the laws of the country. That is making sure that you adhere to the induplam rule. That means that the interest somebody is supposed to pay should not exceed the principal that this person was given out as a loan. So also you make sure that you only contact the people they have given as a referee, and you wait until the loan has actually fallen due. And of course, this must be documented as somebody is getting into this contract with the institution, to tell them that these are going to be our data collection procedures. But I want to say, even in that there are a lot of people who are being ignorant. They're not taking care. I think there's those laws, the data protection, the terms and conditions of the loan, the terms of reference. Many of you, when you're borrowing, you're not going through those terms of references. You do not know what you have allowed them, because some of them are using software to be able to track your phone to find out which device you're borrowing using, where you're going to be going, where do you live. There's a lot of data you're consenting to give these digital lenders, like myself. And so as a player in the space, I am saying that there are players who are adhering to the guidelines that have been given, but there are also rogue players. So even as you're taking out these products from these vendors, please make sure that you're reading the terms of reference. You're making sure that you're very clear around how do they go about collection. And the best is to honor the commitment. If you had agreed to pay, dawa ya deni ni kulipa.
So at GOcredit, perhaps, what is the SOP? Like, I'm interested in what now? 30,000, 50,000. I see you even have up to 4 million.
Yes.
That's quite a huge amount. What are the modalities before you get to the nitty-gritties of, you know, especially in this Christmas season, where one would just go online and look for apps that can give me money, and then I land on Go, whatever. Okay.
So first and foremost, the people we lend out to are mostly SME owners. There are institutions who their main customer base is the government employees. They provide something called a check-off loan where you pay on your salary. There are others that give to private people who are employed in the private sector. And they also give private, they're called maybe salary advance loans, payday loans, which are some of the products that many of these lenders are giving. But our typical client persona is a small to medium business owner in Kenya. The reason this is the person who we want to empower is because they are the ones who are creating employment. They're the ones who are creating opportunities within the village setups, within the city setups. They're the ones running the economy. They also form the bulk of the customers who are underserved. Remember, our mantra is to be the bank of the underserved. We intend to be able to give people who the ordinary bank will not find as bankable, they are not as interesting, maybe they don't have a regular income. Those are the customers we want to serve. That's our target audience. So first and foremost, that is the person we want to serve. Number two, most of our loans, we run between 1 month to 36 months.
Oh, okay.
So we have loans where we allow our customers to acquire a car. Maybe the car is going to be a car that they're using for business, a car maybe they're going to use for Uber, a car they're going to be using actually to travel, just to be able to make their life convenient. Additionally, we have products where you have a car collateral, and then we lend against that collateral. We're also opening other products around agribusiness, import products to help people with clearing of duty that are in the pipeline. But remember, our focus remains the business owner, and the intention is to give you working capital, almost bridging finance. You're expecting the customer to pay you within 90, you have supplied, expecting somebody to pay you within 90 days. During this period, you need to be able to run salaries, run operations, and that's when we come in. So our loans are not long-term loans, number one, and then they're not loans for maybe holidays. I think that is a differentiator. So even as I encourage a lot of people to go to our app and borrow, I would also want to encourage them to know that the person we are lending to is somebody who already had made a plan for how to use this money. Maybe you are the one trying to stock these Christmas trees to be sold during this festive season. I am looking for a customer like you. You're going to be running a nyama choma eatery during this Christmas day, and you're thinking the demand could be very high, and what you can be able to afford with your savings is this much. I want to increase your capacity. If you're the one who's running a matatu business and you're transporting people up country, you might need to hire another bus. That is my target customer. So during this period, I think for avoidance of doubt, if you're stuck, then I am the person to call, Grace at GOcredit. Yes.
Allow me to ask, did you have to be creative because of how defaulters were behaving with money, so that then you changed your target audience to the one that, is more bringing in money that is entrepreneurial? Have those been the challenges that perhaps have affected the digital lending business, as that then lenders like you have moved from the traditional pre-2021 lenders of under 10K to be able to do this, and then there is a defaulting situation? Have you had to be creative in that sector?
In fact, sorry to say, we are trying to move into that sector.
Oh, okay.
Even as we have our target audience being the normal business owner, we also want to avail the same business owner with 10K, 5,000, 3,000 shillings, so that they can be able to even pay for milk as a way to be paid. The reason why we specifically are working with people who own businesses is because of the impact that these people have an opportunity of making. I want to say that, you see, this is a person who is employing 4 to 3 people. If you have a shop on Kirinyaga Road and you are running a spare part shop, you have 4 to 5 people who are employed. You have already committed all your monies to bringing stock from Japan, from Dubai, the spare parts. Now, these people will have to eat their families, they will have to run operations, they have to pay rent. Those are the people I am trying to serve. And we don't have anything against the mass population. We're still building products for the agri sector, but we are very intentional about investing in areas where we're able to make impact. And this is maybe borrowed from our founder, who was a business owner, who had recently traveled abroad, came back, and he did not find any opportunities within the country, of people who wanted to listen to his business idea and say, you know what, this is a business idea I can bank with. People who are not willing to experiment with him. There are times when he had no cash flow to be able to run this business we have, and he needed somebody who would be able to listen to him and be able to bridge that gap, and making sure that, you know what, there are so many other people who need money. I want to be your financial partner to enable you to serve them. And so because he struggled, he decided, you know what, everyone else can access funding. If you're employed today, you just walk around with your payslip to any bank and they'll give you money. If today you're employed by the government, in fact, if you're employed by the private sector, you're number 2 in terms of priority for most of our lenders. If you're employed by the government, you're number 1 in terms of the priority, because they know the government will pay you. And so it's very easy to find predatory lenders in that space. Okay. This space where we don't know you about your surety of your income, this is a real risk, but it's also a real impact opportunity. This is an opportunity to change lives, because these business people have no alternative. Many of them, They go to their bank. The bank is saying, you're only good when you're bringing us money. When it's time to give you a loan, I can only give you this much. So you will think about the turnovers they've been building. When there's a real crisis, these banks are not, or the circles are not willing to handhold them. And these are the people we are targeting in our projects.
Yeah. So back to now the Christmas and the festive season. Talk to us about the importance of having a budget as you head into, in fact, there is the Jamhuri that comes first, then Christmas, and there are those who will actually even take leave without even knowing, or they just know they want to take leave, and it's, sherehe after sherehe, day in, day out. Why is it very important to have a budget so that then, even as you approach Christmas Day, you have not overspent what you needed to have spent during the initial days, or rather you've not spent in the initial days what you ought to have spent during the festive period? Okay.
So a budget is very important, first and foremost, is because there will be a life beyond the festive season. I want to assure you, today is is the festive season. On 31st of December, there will be a 1st of January to look to. There'll be children to go to school. You'll have to pay bills. And so a budget allows continuity. Remember, the resources are limited. They can only do X, Y, Z. If you spend what you do not have in January, you'll find these people saying that there are 50 days of January, 90 days of January. These are people who essentially did not stay within a budget. And I'm saying, contrary to popular belief, a budget should not be strict. It should be practical. And I want to underline the word practical. Okay. If you're a person who enjoys a drink here and there, make sure that is within your budget. Now, whether you can drink Hennessy during this season or you will drink County, that's now the budget consideration. I'm saying don't drink. I'm saying drink what you can afford. And so if you make a budget which says that during this Christmas period, you drink, but the whole budget does not have any provision for alcohol, then I know that you will not be able to maintain this budget because, first and foremost, it is not relatable with your real life situation. So the first and most important thing is to make sure that this budget is yours. It's not your neighbor's budget. It's not your pastor's budget. It's a budget that you will consume. Number two, if I were thinking about how to spend during the Christmas season, what maybe you can avoid to do is to save during the Christmas. Actually, if you have been saving all the 11 months of the year, you have a portion for savings, a portion for enjoyment, so that you are able to do 80%, you pay rent, bills, and then the 20% that you have been saving, enjoy that amount of money. Jirudishie mwili, shukrani. But if you keep a budget that this budget looks like it's your pastor's, it includes tithe, it includes buying a new Bible, gym outfits, and you've not provision for nyama choma, you've not provision for fuel to go up country, you've not provision for the children going out to play, and this budget, you will not be able to live within that budget. And that's how you will end up borrowing this consumerist borrowing from these digital lenders. So please make sure that the budget is yours. If I were you, if I was saving 10,000 shillings, plan to entertain yourself within the 10,000 shillings.
Yeah. And what if in the event the opposite happens? One decides one finds themselves, they have already spent, and then it starts with umejamo 1,000, you've spent 2,000 more. At the end of the day, you're like, I'm already in this pit, I might as well.
Okay.
What are some of the situations? Because those are cases we find, and the rent that needs to be paid at the perhaps 5th day of the month is not available. It's hide and seek games, cat and mouse games with the caretaker, with the landlord. Talk to us about, in the event you find yourself in that space, how can you recover later in the year?
Okay, so first, now you are in the hole. You have overspent the money. You have not paid for bills that you were supposed to pay for. Yeah. So if that is your situation, I'd recommend borrowing a short-term loan. And this is the reason I'd ask. In fact, a short-term here is, I'm talking about 1 to 3 months loan. And this is the reason. If you borrow a single month loan, it means that you will continue getting deeper into the borrowing cycle. But if you say that, I will borrow maybe 50,000 that I can now pay within 3 to 4 months, it allows me to pay and continue living. It also, remember, if you pay the first amount, you're not eligible to borrow the full amount. So you avoid falling into the trap of borrowing 50,000, paying 50,000 plus 5,000, then having to borrow 55,000, so that you pay and then you never get out of the debt cycle. So if you are going to borrow a short-term loan, make sure that it is an installment loan as opposed to a spot, what we call a consolidated loan where you're required to pay a single installment. So make sure if you're going to borrow something, maybe as the equivalent of your 1 month salary, and then make sure that it's payable within 3 to 4 months. So that first and foremost, pretend you didn't receive a salary in December, because indeed you've eaten it. So you just need that, your salary, to get back on your feet, and then you need to pay it slowly, so that you do not end up reborrowing the full amount and then never getting out of debt.
And now when schools come, of course, it's a thorny issue. People need to plan. Let's talk about right now, in this month of December. Ideally, before we get to the festive season, what would someone need to be doing if in the event they've not been able to save in the beginning, for all the 11 months, and then they're here, they're trying to avoid now that car crisis? What ideally, whereas you're saying it's important to save, do you then refuse not go home? Do you then not rent that car to travel? Do you not then go clubbing or go having a machoma? Are those stopgap measures that you can clearly say, okay, on this one, I'm going to control myself?
I think if I was a different if I was not in the space of lending, I'd be under the impression that it is possible for me to say, don't go and you stay at home. So first and foremost, if you had already made plans to go and you do not have money, for this one time I will allow you to borrow. But I also want to think about the kind of debt you will get yourself into. So if you get a debt, you need to I've said, make sure that you take care of two things when it comes to debt: when you're required to pay this installment, how much you're required to pay as an installment for this debt. Number two, how much you have borrowed. So, and what would be the interest rate. So I want you to think about what I've said: the amount you've borrowed, when you're required to pay, the installment amount vis-a-vis what you would typically earn, and then after that think about the interest rate, because the interest rate will tell us how far deep can you get into that debt, and how because if you get a 20% debt, for example, and where you get 20% per month, in the period of 4 months you'll have paid 80%, which is almost double what you borrowed. So if you come to month 3 and discover, you know what, I've paid these people over 100% or over 150% of the amount I borrowed, then you will get mad and decide to default, and then you'll of course get listed with CRB. You have people now calling you to ask you to pay their debt. You have stress. So the best would be, ask yourself 3 questions. Indeed, I will have to borrow. Where am I borrowing from? And that's why I'd recommend lenders who obviously are licensed by Central Bank of Kenya, especially around how they manage customers who have not been able to pay. You'll find that there is a requirement to be humane even as we collect debt. You will find somebody who is willing to talk to you, to be able to advise you, to give you debt collection products, which we call restructure, where if you had borrowed a loan for 10 months, they can actually stretch it to 24 to make sure that the installments are reasonable and you can be able to pay the debt. So that's number one. Find out who is giving you the money. Then number 2, at what price? Remember, I have said you already planned to hire a car. You've committed to people at up country that indeed you will come driving a car. So if you borrow, you need to ask yourself, at what interest rate will I pay this money? And that's very important, because you don't want to get into debt fatigue, a situation where you are tired of paying this loan. Urushe mkono useme, you know what, nimelipa ya kutosha, wanilist kama wanataka, which obviously exposes you to more expensive debts in future. So interest is a very important consideration. Number 2, installment amount. You know, you could even be given a low interest, but the installment amount is a significant percentage of your current income. So maybe you earn 50,000 and the installment is 40,000. It means that you will never get out of debt. So think about the interest, then think about the installment. And that's why you need to ask yourself, if I earn 50,000, maybe I want to spend only 10% of that or 20% of that in servicing a debt. And so that installment needs to be within the 20% range to allow you to live comfortably. Typically, our country, there's a regulation that we don't go beyond a third rule. But being a bit more prudent, I'd say don't go beyond 20% of your income. But if you have committed 20% of your income to service a debt, this is a debt I know you will not default on. And then, of course, number 3 is, after you've done all these things, plan to pay this debt. And the only way you can plan to pay this debt is making sure that the installment dates fall within when you receive your income. So it's very important to make sure there's a matching concept. You get your income on 10th, the installment you have agreed with the bank will be on 12th or 13th, so that there is no pressure when there's a delay from your bank on 10th. You cannot be able to pay because, and now they are calling on you, you're already in penalties because you've matched 10th to 10th. So you need to be able to also think about, when do I get my income? Give yourself a bit of 2 days to 3 days for breathing room to anticipate, could it be a weekend, anything could happen, and then you are able to pay the installment when you have income, and you should be able to get out of debt in no time.
In no time. Talk to us about now Nga Credit, it seems good on paper. It seems, you have the customer in mind. What are some of the tools or strategies that would make you different in terms of when you compare to your competitors? Why would one need to come to Ngao Credit? Do you harass people? Do you what strategies do you use when you're collecting? Is there room to again negotiate? In this part of the country, this part of the world rather, apart from supermarkets, everything else is negotiable.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things or the tools that would make then Ngao Credit the quote-unquote perfect go-to place?
Okay, so first and foremost, I would think about the best reason for you to come to Ngao Credit is we do not want to serve every customer. We are very clear about the customer we want to serve, and it's because we have been business people before. We understand the business cycles, and we've been able to craft products that mirror business cycles. And I'll give an example of one of our very popular products called the 90-day supplier loan. It has the supplier in mind. It allows you to pay interest, and then principal and interest on the last day. We mirror the supplier cycle. We know that in 90 days, you should have been paid by the person you supplied to, and being able to service our debt. So it makes sure that the installments that you are supposed to pay are so small, because nobody has paid you now. You'll pay the big amount when you receive the full payment. So the fact thing is that we've been in business, we understand our customer, we have products for that specific customer, and it's because we know the customer we want to serve. That's number one. Number two is because we are listening and understanding. And I'll say this why. Because with business cycles, anything can happen. And I want to say that the people who serve people who are employed, the risk is lower. There's a lot of predictability around the income patterns of people who are either employed by the government or in the private sector. When we come to business people, anything could happen. And these people have not refused to pay. So you need to have products which we call debt collection products, almost restructure. We even have a month, we can waive interest, we can waive penalties, because the customer can explain, look, I supplied, they were supposed to pay me in a 90-day period, they've extended to 180, I now cannot afford to pay 40, can I pay 20? And we offer a restructure product. Number two, we can even say, you know what, we look for somebody who can buy off the debt at a lower interest rate, because we understand, us being a short-term product, our interest could be significantly higher. You're not a bad customer. You're going through a bad time. And I would like you to understand, there are no bad customers. They just are going through a problem. Once their situation is back, they can come back to you. So we also have partners who we work with, who we can be able to offload this debt to in the event that you are struggling, for example. Number two, our turnaround period, turnaround time. A lot of the people who come to us come when they have no alternative. Now, we can talk about, we'll do all the due diligence. You have missed the opportunity. And in business, if you're given a deal today and you're told you need to close it tomorrow, if there are a lot of stories between now, I'm telling you, go for this document, go to your mother's birth certificate, by the time you're supposed to complete the job, you have missed the timeline and you're not able to service this debt. So it is very important we have a less than 6-hour turnaround time when a client has fully complied. And I want to say here, when a client has fully complied, meaning that all the requirements I gave you, which are basics, bank statements, M-Pesa statements, your ID, your KRP, you've been able to supply those documents. Within 6 hours, I should have been able to fund your account, which makes sure that you can be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you. And then thirdly, obviously, is because we have a very able team distributed across the country that can be able to offer you support in the event that you are experiencing any kind of challenges. We also allow you to network with some of our customers, because we have over 2,300 customers spread across the country who are also business owners as you. From time to time, we organize a few cocktails, we organize a few lunches where we want our customers to meet each other, so that maybe I'm in transport and you are in you own a school. There are areas of synergy which allow you to be able to do business together. So these are the opportunities we avail our customers or would-be customers. So if you are somebody who is looking for a financial partner, you're a business owner, then Ngao Credit would be it for you. And we're not saying that the other financial lenders within the digital space are not good. We're just saying that we know the customer we want to serve. And we are working day and night to make sure that financial inclusion, financial services are within the touch of their fingers. Yeah.
How has technology shaped how Ngao Credit and other perhaps digital lenders go ahead and carry out their business in terms of carrying out the checks? I know about Metropole and Credit Info. Those are institutions perhaps you may be relying on to be able to provide the credit history. How has technology informed or revolutionized how credit lenders, short-term loans, long-term loans, are able to then still meet the needs of these people, whereas still, at the end of the day, you're out to make money. Yes. Talk to us about that balance.
So I think first and foremost, we'd like to thank God for being born in this era, in the era where a lot of information is synchronized. And I'd want to say we have so many credit reference bureaus. However, that we, as Ngao specifically, we do not make a decision to lend or not to lend based on the credit history. It just tells us which kind of loan we can afford you, what you're comfortable to pay as an installment, how to manage your debt. For example, if you're a customer who's overborrowed, then it would tell me that what I need to do is to give you very small installments as I keep managing your debt. So first and foremost, there's also a lot more information sharing within the digital space, the banks and the SACCOs. So that's good. It means that I have a customer's full credit history, which can allow me to be able to make better decisions, to be able to advise them on the best product for them to take up with us. Number two is around analytics of this data. In the past, when you consume the M-Pesa statement, there was nothing else you could do. You can see 1 million transactions. You cannot be able to make head or tail if this person is in good business or in bad business. But thanks to technology, we have tools that can be able to crunch the M-Pesa statements to be able to find out somebody who is not typically banked within a bank. What are their net inflows, cash inflows within a month? What amount of these inflows is income? What is its expenses? What is their lifestyle, and what other obligations do they have? Even if these obligations are not with the bank or with another financial institutions, and it will allow me also to be able to tailor the best product for you. So even when it comes to analytics of the financial instruments that you've provided me or any other data that you've provided me, then technology has really come in handy in making sure that I make the best decision. And I'd like to say this for the avoidance of doubt. The credit reference bureaus are very important, and it's very important that a lot of the lenders in our space list the data with the credit reference bureaus, because the more we know our customers, the better products we build for them. As opposed to a situation where if I know a lot of you, then I deny you the products. That is a post-2021 thinking. There are no bad customers. I think I've said this here. There are customers going through a difficult time. And so the business of lenders in my space is to find out how much can I help this customer, because I have seen these kinds of customers. Maybe I have seen a customer like you 20 to 40 times before. So I can tell which product I give you and you sink completely. Your business will die, you will never recover. And I know a product that if I give you today, immediately, even though it will take us maybe 6 months, 12 months to rehabilitate your financial state, we will be able to do that within that time frame. So it is important as a borrower that you want your information to borrow from people who can be able to list you, that you get the best advice possible. Number three is, if you think about accessibility of these financial services and financial inclusion, gone are the days where you need to queue. Gone are the days that somebody needed to now ask for the bank statements and the M-Pesa statements. If I just look at the phone that you're using and the transaction history available on your phone, I can be able to determine how much you can be able to pay. So you see now, if I was only going to give you what based on M-Pesa, now I can be able to give you outside M-Pesa. I'm now looking at how you're transacting with other lenders, even just by using your phone. So it's very important that we are in this era. I would like a lot of the people the players within our space to embrace technology to offer these financial services to our customers. And number two, to increase collaboration. I think I've just mentioned that if we have a challenge with a customer because maybe their installment is too high, we offload them to cheaper lenders, which we would not be able to do if we were not relying on technology. So yeah, what a wonderful time to be alive.
What a wonderful time. Talk to us about credit, especially in this country, in this part of the world. Many successful economies, and when you compare the global north as you compare to the global south, the global south really fears debt. The global north, on the other hand, debt is actually encouraged. You go to countries like the US, where you are actually encouraged to borrow to build your credit history. Talk to us about the importance of, for instance, I may not in the present moment be able to borrow to run a business, for example. But is it okay, quote unquote, to build a credit history, to know how to borrow, so that then when I need this money to borrow, I will then know that these are my limits, these are not my limits?
So it is still encouraged in Kenya. The information around the encouragement is what is lacking, and also around the global south, as you've put it, is lacking, because financial institutions typically want to lend people who have a credit history. It means that if you do not borrow, we do not have your credit history. We don't know how you pay, what is your paying pattern. We don't know what are your current known sources of income. And it will be very difficult for somebody to lend to somebody they do not know. So it is encouraged not only in the global north, but also in the global south. However, financial institutions like myself have not done enough to educate the masses on the importance of borrowing and also the importance of paying debt. Because there's one thing to borrow, and then there's the other thing is to pay the debt. Number two, financial institutions are not coming out candidly to explain which markets do they serve. And I've said here, Ngao and other players in my space, we offer bridging finance. The institutions that are going to give you long-term investment finance. And so the question around how costly is this, the price of debt, the cost of debt, is also something that is not educated a lot in our space, because you have predatory lenders, people like Ngao, who want to give you money so that you can be able to build the business and be able to borrow a higher ticket next time. Then there are others who are in it for the short run, and they are trying to make quick money and then move away out of this market. Maybe they have come from a different market, they want to make their kill and maybe move to a different market. So informing our people that debt is not bad, that debt is nothing to be afraid of, and discussions around money happening at the household, that also needs to happen. Because I think the challenge with our economies, global south, is that people don't discuss money. And you know, money is both good and bad. But even if your father was to win even if your father was to win a sports pesa, who would know? Who would know? Even if you was atasema hakuna pesa, hakuna pesa. The discussions around how much money is enough money. And then people also, because we've not been educated on how much money is enough money, we are wasteful. When people land their first jobs, they run into very expensive debt. The debt is to buy things that are depreciating in value, because the financial education is not happening at the household, and it's also not happening by the players in the space, and to the detriment of our people. So I thank TV47 and other television stations who are doing this to make sure that this information is available to the masses around it. Debt is not bad. What kind of debt? What cost of debt? How are you going to pay this loan? What are your known sources of income? And this conversation is now to move from this seat to the house, where when we are raising our Gen Alpha, we're telling them, I have given you 1,000 as a debt, you will pay me as follows. And that financial education needs to happen at that level. So when people now spend 1,000 shillings on candy, and they have to pay you 100 by doing maybe some house calls at home, and they know that, you know what, if I borrow, I'll be required to pay. So I must ask myself, did I need 1,000 shillings worth of candy? Did I need candy worth 1,000 shillings? And you see, that conversation cannot happen if it is happening for the first time when you're an adult, which is what typically happens in Africa.
In Africa.
Yeah.
How can consumers take a more proactive approach and measures to their finances, not just especially during this festive season, but also all year round? Fine, Christmas will come and go, New Year will come and go. When January sets in, January 1st, of course, Salo for December will have checked in Nauko, beginning, rather the early 20-something days, from 25th, 24th even, for some employers. Fine, we've opened a new year, talk to us about the resolutions that even one can take and be able to say, I may be in debt. You can talk about one who is in debt and one who is not in debt, to be able to ensure that their 2025 is a smoother, it's less rough.
Okay. So I'll start with the one who's in debt.
Yes.
I think two options you need to think about is debt consolidation as option one, and then also paying the small debts first.
Debt consolidation, knowing how much you owe.
Yes, you need to know the full amount, and then you need to move to you need to make sure that the entire amount is seated in one pot, the cheapest pot. That is number one. Number two, it is to pay the small debts. Remember, if you have 14 debts, start with the debts that you can offset in full first. So those can be your first New Year's resolution around paying the small debts and then negotiating with the people who have given you the big debts. And so look at options like buy-offs to cheaper lenders. Look at if you had taken an asset finance to buy maybe an AMG Mercedes, and now you cannot be able to service this debt. Discuss with your bank options of them disposing this car so that you start off with a clean slate. Option for two, maybe you have a mortgage, you have a car finance with one bank and a mortgage with another bank, or you have a car finance and then you have other small debts. Think about how can you increase the loan that you have where you are, the cheaper loan, and then use that amount to offset these very expensive small loans. And If you do that, then you're only left with one loan to service. Think about debt consolidation, restructures. Now talk to your financial institutions when you do not have an option to take out more debt so that you can offset the expensive debt. Then go back and discuss with the financial institution and tell them, this is my now current financial position. I cannot be able to service a debt at 40,000, maybe I'll service one at 8,000. And then agree on a medium. Agree on a date that works for you, and then ask them to find out alternatives for you to offload the debt to cheaper institutions. You'll find, because they are in this space and they have been in space for longer than you have been, they have cheaper options for you. But number one, communicate.
Okay.
Whatever happens when you're in debt, talk to the lender. Talk to the lender. I think I'll give you a bad joke, and I don't want this to be taken anywhere. It is very hard for a financial institution even to auction anything from a customer who has been paying small amounts frequently. For example, your installment is 100,000, but you are not able to pay the 100,000 as a chunk. But you can show that I pay 5,000, I pay 10,000, I pay throughout the course of the month. When it comes to the table to negotiate, it's very easy to be able to negotiate the financial and say the willingness to pay is there, the capacity is not. And let's find a way where my willingness and my capacity are matched, where I relieve pressure from you as the lender waiting for this money and planning with it, and you relieve pressure from me to allow me to think about how do I make money to service this debt. So if you have never borrowed and you're making a financial institution, I want to say as a lender, the best source of business income to invest in business should be 50% saving, 50% borrowing. And I would want to stress, as much as possible, if you're going to take businesses fail between 1 year and 2 years. So if you're going to take a risk, and I know a lot of the New Year resolutions will be around how to become financially secure, how to try and transit away from employment, and a lot of this is around starting businesses. Important things to think about when you are running a business are the cost of overheads. And overheads are rent, things that you pay even when a business is not generating income. How many of those can you shoulder for a year as you wait for the business to break even? That is number one. You need to identify how much can I pay in rent for a year. If this business will never make any money,
do I have the money?
Do I have the money to pay rent if I'm going to have a physical shop? Do I have the money to pay employees if I'm going to have them working in my shop or doing something for me? That is number one. Number two, you need to ask yourself, is there a real target audience? And I'm telling you, people who like the clothes you wear and the people who can buy the clothes you want to sell them are very different. A joke I was given by a business owner I know. He told me, every time you know you are in business is if you can get a paying customer. And with the advent of technology, you can sell on social media, you can be able, whether it's services or goods, you can now sell without incurring overheads. Can you try and sell these things that you are saying without incurring any overheads fast? If you can get buying customers month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, and now you now need to move maybe to a physical space to absorb the demand, and not the other way around. You don't start with the physical space as you wait for the demand. If you're going to start, for example, farming, I think the people who want to farm horticultural products, you have not identified a market. And you've gone to me, you've borrowed a lot of money, you've sunk it in greenhouses all over Narok, and now the produce is here, we have nowhere to take it. And then you are running, first and foremost, it's a perishable good, so if you're not able to sell them, you're going to consume them, and yet you have to service a debt. So a lot of the New Year's resolution, think about them from if a business does not generate income for 1 year, what can I absorb as overheads? And then find alternative ways of running a business without overheads. For example, if you are running a school transport business, I'll give an example. If the car is not carrying children, it's parked. So you don't have any overhead. The only challenge, if you bought the car on credit and it is parked, you have to pay the bank. So think about those things even as you're starting these businesses in New Year, as you're planning for your New Year. And I wish everyone joins business. But I also want to encourage a lot of you that it is not easy, not to say that you should not get into business, not easy, but you need to start with your own money. You need to have saved your own money so that you can take risks and learn lessons with your own, as opposed to taking risks with the bank's money, because it comes with an interest component, which could be very punitive and could sink you into bad credit.
Indeed. Grace, thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's enter the closing remarks perhaps in a minute. Your punchy note that you'd like to leave our viewers with, and perhaps even how one can get in touch with Ngao Credit.
Okay. So first I'll start with how to get in touch with Ngao Credit. Ngao Credit is available on all social media handles at ngaocredit.com. That is on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all social media. We have a very strong digital presence and a dedicated team just waiting for you to just say hi They'll chat you up. Some of them will talk to you about how to manage your current debt, talk to you about investment opportunities, and others will offer these loans to you should you need them. I think the parting note for me is around, this is a good season. It's a season for family. My CEO says, let the main business remain the main business. It's a season for family, for love. And love and family is not money. They are not the same thing. I would like you to borrow, but I would also want you to borrow money you can pay. So if it is the family at home, if it's the nuclear family, the children, the wife, and this is not a good year, it's not a good year, have those conversations with your family. Let them appreciate where you are. And then let's have this financial inclusion conversations happening with our children, just to be able to prepare a woke generation when it comes to them absorbing credit in future.
Indeed. Yeah. Thank you so much, Grace, for joining us and speaking to us, and so much for your time as well. I'm sure our viewers have been able to learn a thing or two about managing debt, especially in this festive season. Grace Njogu from GOtv. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, you're welcome.
Indeed, my name is George Maringa. Thank you so much for watching. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.